I always thought Colin was a fabulous player. Didn't get the recognition I thought he deserved. He was brave, strong, and a good goal scorer.
He was tough, and you know, he wanted the ball wherever he was, and if you had it, you had to lose it or get kicked out of it.
He had a nice pair of legs, good thighs on him. Yes, I thought he was a very good player.
But I played with Colin on a regular basis. He was a good player. Nice lad, good player.
He's a good player to have in the side. Very strong.
Colin stood out because he had his United connection. Oh, he played for Manchester United. He used to play for Manchester United, so he must be good.
For me, when he came in the side, he didn't let the side down.
Colin Webster was born on the 17th of July 1932 to brains brewer Fred and maid Louisa. He was brother to Joyce in the large and close-knit community of Ely in Cardiff. His talent was spotted early on, as his best friend Ralph Thieker remembers, when the two played at Culverhouse Cross.
Every Sunday there would be 40 or maybe even 50 of us boys up there, and we played all through Sunday. Some would go home for lunch and come back and play, and we just used to kick hell out of each other, you know. Or he did anyhow, because he was quite a rough player.
Having played for the Windsor-Clive school football team, Webster would go on to represent Grange Villa before joining up with Cardiff City's nursery team at the age of 14 under founder Cyril Spears.
All the good players in the area used to try and get selected for Cardiff Nomads, which was a local team, or when I say local, they were in the Cardiff and District League, or it might have been the Cardiff Combination League, I'm not sure. But he played for Cardiff Nomads, which were a very, very good side. They used to win everything down there in them days. He was apprentice motor fitter. He worked in the carburettor department for their industry. But if anybody had anything wrong with the carburettors, he was the boy to see. He was quite good at it. But of course, he didn't stay there very long. See?
Colin Webster was serving in the army with Dennis Violet at Catterick, and I think he'd been released by, I may be wrong, Cardiff, somebody, 22, and Violet mentioned him to Murphy, and he came to United and had a trial, and that's how they signed Colin Webster.
But I think he had a trial with Liverpool first, and so he was torn between the two, but he chose Man United.
Colin Webster would sign professional forms for United on the 26th of April 1952, the day that they secured their first league title in 41 years when they beat Arsenal 6-1 at Old Trafford. Webster would go on to make his debut 1 year later against Portsmouth in November, providing the assist for Tommy Taylor in United's only goal of the game. He was starting to impress people around him, including former teammate Harold Bratt.
Colin was fast, direct, good goal scorer, could play across the front line, and nothing was a lost cause for Colin. He'd chase anything down, force the opposition into conceding corners and free kicks, which a lot of other players would give up on, but not Colin.
He's a very good member of the squad, really. He was a squad player, I think you could say that. And whenever he came in the side, he did okay.
Probably Colin Webster's problem was that he could play in so many positions. Whereas if you're a 7, you become known there, and you get moved around a bit too much. But he was a good player. He was a good player. Scored a lot of goals. I think he knew how to look after himself on the pitch as well. I think if you thought you were going to give him an hard time, you might have just looked at get him first.
But he was sent off 4 times, so he's a bit of a handful on the pitch for referees. He was a little bit facetious, if you like, but easily aggravated. You know, players could soon get him wound up. But, I mean, it was very unusual. I can hardly remember anybody in my time of playing at Manchester United being sent off. And at Nottingham Forest either. People just didn't get sent off.
Webster, when he came in the side, did score goals. So when you heard he was playing, you didn't think, oh, rubbish. You thought, no, he's a good player.
For me, when he came in the side, he didn't let the side down. You know, he was, in any other club, he perhaps would have been a permanent member of another team, but the competition there at that time was just tremendous.
Before the Munich air disaster, Manchester United were on the crest of a wave. They were very, very early into youth football. And the club, from the first team down to the junior team, was full of talented young players. And you could see at that time success over the next few years was almost guaranteed. They were that good.
Oh, it was a big thing in him. He was, you know, he was chuffed to death to play for Man United, as I think any young man would be at that time, because he was what they called the Busby baby, and Matt Busby had a team of youngsters, you know, Edwards and all of them, all young men, but after the crash, that was it. A lot of them died, and some of them were injured, badly injured. They could never play again. But Colin wasn't there, so he was very fortunate.
Yes, especially that time, because we used to have a holiday for our sort of wedding anniversary plus my birthday, 2 in 1. That suited Colin. two holidays for the price of one. So yes, he would know. He was very, very down when we were on the plane, because it was the time of the air crash, and it all, you know, the memories came back.
I know that his best friend was on the flight, the person he would have been sat next to. And Colin was ill at the time. He had, I think, the flu, and he couldn't make the flight. So it must have been devastating for him, not only to lose a friend, but also to think what might have been. I'm sure it must have been just devastating. To be personally involved, to be so close to it, to have such involvement with friends, colleagues, teammates. He was very much a team player, Colin. I think he always felt completely part of a team. I don't think he was the kind of person that would have wanted to shine on his own or take credit for, you know, being a hero in any way. I think he was a team player, and I think that probably was something that affected him even more then, the fact that his teammates were affected and some lost their lives on the day.
After missing it, he's very, very cut up about it. He said, you know, missing, you know, because he lost friends that he knew, and he's not old friends. They were young lads, you know, in the late teens and early 20s that lost their lives there. So he felt it very bad. Felt it very bad.
After Munich, you had to deal with the situation. You had no option. But it was very, very difficult. The cream of the club had gone, and how the club survived the Munich disaster, I don't really know. But if it wasn't for Jimmy Murphy, the club wouldn't be where it is today. There's no doubt about that. How he dealt with that situation, only he knows.
It was Bolton that beat them, wasn't it? 2-0, yeah. Well, in fairness, it was an incredible achievement to get to the final, wasn't it? Under the circumstances. And I think, I'm not quite sure, but I think the goalkeeper was bundled over for one of the goals, Harry Gregg, you know, and that wouldn't have happened today. But nonetheless, it was an achievement to get there under the circumstances. And how the club sort of got the thing back on track was amazing.
His good form with Manchester United would earn him a recall for Wales ahead of the 1958 World Cup in Sweden, where he would once again link with Jimmy Murphy.
Jimmy was a fantastic coach. Jimmy could make, as a player, Jimmy could make you feel as though you're the best player in the world, which I wasn't, by the way. But he made you feel that way, and you felt you were playing for the best club in the world, and you were playing for the best spectators in the world, supporters. And Jimmy will have carried that attitude over to the Welsh squad.
He would go on to play 3 games in the tournament, including the quarter-final against Brazil, where he was called up to replace the injured John Charles. However, the Welsh were knocked out by a goal from a 17-year-old called Pelé. After returning to Manchester and having been with the Red Devils for 6 years, his time with United was coming to an end.
He was surplus to requirements after United started building the team after the crash. He played in the team the rest of that season. He played in the FA Cup final where he had a loser's medal against Bolton.
Oh, the medal, yes, the championship medal. Colin gave it to me, so I bought myself a nice chain. And of course I used to wear it as a necklace. And all my girlfriends' husbands used to say, oh, don't do that, you'll have it yanked off your neck. So it's back in the box, in a safe. So, yes, I treasured that.
After that, Matt Busby was building a new team then to replace the stars that had got lost in the crash. And Colin wasn't, he was surplus to requirements, as you put it, but and he wanted to come back home to South Wales. And that's when the Swans stepped in, and Trevor Morris was the manager that done the Swans then. I was an 8-year-old kid, and I took to players like Colin Webster and Brady Reynolds and people like that with the Swans then, and Colin was one of my favourite players there.
I was on the ground stuff at Swansea Town, as it known in those days, and Colin came from Manchester United as part of the deal after he played in the cup final. Became instant friends. I always thought Colin was a fabulous player. Didn't get the recognition I thought he deserved. He was brave, strong, and a good goal scorer. Could see straight away he was a good player. I thought Manchester United probably at the time made a slight mistake getting rid of him too early, probably. They wanted to move on after the air disaster, and Colin was a great asset to us.
He used to say about the training episodes when they're supposed to be running along to Mumbles on the training exercise, and a couple of them get on a bus or whatever to get back and whatever, or hide and get the bus back and things like that. Yeah, it was a good bunch of boys there as well. He said
he showed a lot of his Man United strength when he came to Swansea, and I think a lot of the players did appreciate Colin when he played practice matches, things like that. Colin was always a good player, never mind what it was, how slow the game was, this, that. Colin was a good player. He was really nice to have him in the side.
I think a lot of people, they like the, for want of a better word, naughty players, and Colin was a very abrasive player, and I saw him get sent off once, and he got into quite a few tussles, which always made him a favourite with the fans then.
We were playing up in London, I think it was probably Chelsea or somebody at Stamford Bridge, and we used to catch a train about 10:15 on Saturday morning. Never stayed the night before, it was only a London trip. So we'd leave Swansea at 10:15, have lunch on the train, get to the ground as normal. This particular day, all the players were to get to the station by 10 o'clock via the quarter-past train. Well, Colin Webster, the wicked bugger he is, and Bray Reynolds, the right pair, one decided to pick the other one up, and the other one forgot who was supposed to pick each other. And long story short, we were supposed to have left High Street Station at 10:15. Train pulled out. The two players hadn't turned up, Brady and Colin. Trevor Morris got off to give him a bit of stick, and off we went. Unbeknown to us, this conversation was, right, you two devils, Colin and Brady, you've got to get to either Neath, Port Talbot, Bridgend or Cardiff before that train gets in any of those stations. Otherwise you're in deep, deep trouble. So Colin said, I got my car, get in the back, boss, and we'll catch the train. So we just going along, now we pulled into Neath. We're going along the motorway alongside the railway towards Port Talbot, and all of a sudden, we saw Colin's car. Brady's waving to us. Trevor Morris is in the back, and we're all laughing, what's going on, what's going on? They get to Port Talbot before the train pulls up, park the car, run over the bridge, get onto the train, sit down. What's the problem, what's the problem? I never knew what they would find, but what a story prior to the game, wasn't it? You couldn't write it. And Trevor Morris had no answer, he caught the train. No one on the right station, but he caught the train. That's the type of thing Colin and Brady would do. Wonderful.
He had what you've got to have. You've got to have that instinct of, you don't allow people to step on you or use you or anything. And Colin was that type of person. If you kick Colin, he'd get you before the end of the game. And you need that in it. You need that in the game. If you haven't got that, well, you're in trouble because people will take advantage. He wouldn't take advantage of Colin because they know quite well he'd come back at him, right? But that's the type of person he was. And for him to be playing for Manchester United in those days, with the quality players they had, that shows how good a player he was. He was a quality player, from one player to another, telling you that. He came to Swansea and we was better off for it.
Well, as I said, he was a great asset. He was quick, very strong, brave, because in those days, as you know yourself, in the era we played in, the tackle from behind was allowed. And Colin was so strong, the first touch was good. If you didn't have a good first touch in those days, the fella could come through and take the ball if you're on your legs. So Colin was a superb player, I thought, anyway.
Having spent 5 years with the Swans, Colin signed for Newport County in 1963, who were then in the 4th Division. He stayed with them for 1 year before signing for non-league Worcester City that summer. His stay with the Faithful was a short one, and he signed with Merthyr Tydfil on a free transfer in February 1965, before leaving 3 months later.
And then he played up at Portmaddock, Mel Charles and Colin, and we had a ball. Well, the owner of the football club up there owned all the caravan sites. So after the games, then he'd take us to his lovely country club for really super meals. And so I used to get driven along like a lady to this country club. Yes, we had some fun up there. I think it was only 1.5 seasons, I think, Colin played up there.
One of his last jobs was as a park keeper. He used to lock the parks up and that, the gates of the parks in the nights. And he was like a park ranger, so he'd be out in the open all day with his work. And whenever I went to see him, as long as the weather was kind to us, he'd be out in his back garden, and Liz would bring the tea or the beer out to the garden, and we'd be chatting in the garden there. I used to point out his plants and stuff, and that's the way he loved life. Loved life.
He was very fortunate. He had a lovely little house down by Singleton Park, a very popular area in Swansea. Lived right opposite the main entrance to the park, and he was struggling. His breathing was bad, and he was having a really bad time. His lungs and one another. And we decided, Peter, in particular, got us all together. It was Peter Davis, myself, Herb Williams, Keith Todd, and a couple of other players, who names I forget, we all decided to go and visit him in his house. He didn't know we were going to come. We didn't tell Liz either. We all just turned up one day to give him a bit of a lift, you know, because he was such a smashing guy, and his face lit up just to see us players coming through the door. And we just reminded him of different stories, and he loved all that. He'd put his mask on, and he'd tell a story and put the mask back on. It was sad to see him like that, but it lifted him so much, and Liz had tears in his eyes. It was just a smashing day out, you know. And I think we enjoyed it as well. And like Peter, one of his best mates, he loved to see him, and Peter was telling different stories about different things and the other. But they were a smashing bunch of lads. I was very fortunate to be amongst these boys, and I think it was just a lovely, lovely day.
Yes, yes. Mel Charles, Mel Nurse, Brayley Reynolds, oh dear, Barry Jones. They came to visit Colin when he was really, really poorly. It was a touching scene, you know, to see Colin in his bed, riddled with cancer. And nice to think that he still had friends.
So I've gone in, I'm sitting in the waiting room now. I've been to the reception, told him who I was. I'm waiting to see Colin Webster, please, because he was in hospital at the time. He was very poor. And I can remember now, right, what really happened there. I've gone up to the reception, told him who I was, and if you don't mind sitting by there, Mr. Nurse, right, I'll go and see you and get Colin to come out to see you. Okay, lovely, thank you. So next thing I know, right, all the staff, most of the staff are all coming out asking for my signature, autograph, see? So I'm signing bloody autographs and all the rest of it. Right, I've only come to see Colin, right? The next thing, Colin comes out and he sits alongside me. So they keep asking me for my autograph, and I keep giving them to Colin. You are called, sign that, son. And he's signing it. So they're looking at me stupid. They didn't even know who he was. They're looking at me and I said, you know who this is? This is Colin Webster, the great Busby Babes player. You know, Colin Webster. Gee, put him on a pedestal. They give him everything after. Brilliant. I'm glad I went for that reason only, because a couple of days later, Colin passed away, quietly. Now, if I hadn't gone when I did, they wouldn't have known what he had done and who he was. Because the hospital are dealing with thousands of people on a yearly basis, aren't they? They come and go, and Colin had finished playing football a couple of years back, you know what I mean? But I'm glad I went when I did, because it opened the doors for him. It made him feel at home again.
We were lucky to have him in our family. I think we were privileged, I suppose, in a way, to have had this sort of wonderful achievement that he had, and as part of our family, the fact he was, you know, somebody we could call an uncle. And yeah, we're very proud of him.
That's the type of player Colin was. He was very, very down to earth, and he'd have a chat and a joke with you and everything. So down to earth, and like one of the boys, No high and mighties about him. Oh, I used to play for Manchester United. Nothing like that. Never. He was so down to earth. Great, really great. I do miss him.
We had some great fun. Absolutely. I had a wonderful life with Colin. Absolutely.